And from the pages of MikeHuckabee.com, where you can catch up with my daily analysis of the news, comes my post-game analysis of the State of the Union address. The true genius of that speech was that by waiting until the president could give it in the House chamber in front of the most radical, mindlessly obstructionist group of Democrats in history, all Trump had to do was three simple things to reveal the condition of our Congress. One, present in a thoughtful, bipartisan, and conciliatory manner. Two, list good news about peace and prosperity from his first 2 years in office. And three, talk about issues like national security and protecting the innocent that until recently at least were taken for granted as basic values shared by all Americans. I mean, he knew that if Democrats, A, applauded those things, they would be seen as applauding him, which would demoralize their Trump-hating base. Or B, if they sat on their hands, they'd come across as pro-infanticide, pro-open borders, pro-criminals, and against jobs for all Americans, including minorities. So A was good for him. B was even better, as his opponents mostly chose B. So by standing up strongly for time-honored American values, President Trump established a clear marker to show that Americans just how far to the left his opponents had drifted. There are several ways to tell that this speech was a triumph for Trump, and not just the fact that Nancy Pelosi looked like she was getting a root canal without Novocaine while listening to it. Instant surveys of Americans were off the charts. A CBS poll found that 76% of respondents had a positive reaction, 72% approving of his stance on immigration. CNN's poll also showed 76% approval, 59% strongly approving. That must have been so painful for CNN to report that they had to emphasize that while Americans approved of Trump's call for bipartisan cooperation, most don't believe it'll happen. Hate to break this to them, but that isn't necessarily a negative comment on Trump. They just watched a bunch of Democrats who were so stubbornly partisan that they couldn't even applaud a little girl beating cancer or a ban on killing babies if Trump seemed to be in favor of those things. Now, the talking heads must have also realized how effective the speech was because they were reduced to grabbing at straws to try to criticize it, like furiously comparing Trump to Richard Nixon because he called the investigations that the Democrats want to launch ridiculous. Hey, at least he didn't call them a vast left-wing conspiracy, which would have really sounded Nixonian. Or then there was Chris Matthews complaining that the president didn't talk about climate change. Now, if the best you can do is to knock down his speech, is to carp about what he didn't say, then your tank of vitriol is down to fumes. Before the speech, Trump's approval rating in the latest Rasmussen survey was up to 48%. It's going to be interesting to see where it goes in the next few days. Now, let's consider what's on your mind this week. We get this from Gladys. She's writing from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and says, in watching the State of the Union address, I saw the president recognize Matthew Charles, a former drug dealer released through the First Step Act. Is this good for our country? I mean, we see stories every day about crime in our communities and at the border. Is this just an invitation for more incidents? Well, Gladys, it's a great question. I think it's one of the best things the president has done, and truly one of the things that happen in a bipartisan way. There are people who do commit crime, but it doesn't mean that they're not redeemable. What a sad day it would be if we take away from people something that they can earn back, and that's not only hope, but an opportunity for a second chance. Nobody's in favor of turning wild criminals back on the street, but once people have demonstrated that they're willing to get an education, learn a skill, participate in a community and in a society, and play by the rules, there's no reason to keep beating them down, because when we do that, the only place they can go is back to crime. I think what we're doing with folks like this gentleman is exactly the right thing. We get this from Janet. She writes from Sandusky, Ohio. She says the New York Times columnist Charles Blow stated in a message to the president, quote, "You want to build this wall, you know, this monument to white supremacy, as a medieval wall along the border because it's about brown people," end quote. And she asked, how is the protection and security of our border a question of color? Want a stronger border, protect every American, no matter their ethnic background? Well, of course that's right, Janet. And Charles Blow, well, let me put it gently. He's an idiot. What else can I say? This is not about people of color. This is not about somehow having a negative attitude toward immigration. Immigration has made our country wonderful and great, and people have brought their skills, their capabilities, but most of all, they've brought their hope, they've brought their hard work. And we have every reason to welcome people from all kinds of cultures, countries, and colors to come to this country and be part of us. And I'm going to tell you something. If you come to our border and you're burning our flag and you're waving one of another country, I'm going to tell you something. You can keep your rear end out and go back to where you think it was better, but you don't belong here. I don't care what color you are. So if you've got something you'd like for me to address, drop us an email at my2cents@tbn.tv. That's my 2 cents with the number 2. That's all the time I'm afraid we've got for this week's Facts of the Matter.